Singularity.
My name is Nicola, and you're watching Singularity FM, the place where we interview the future. If you guys enjoy this podcast, you can show your support by either writing a brief review on iTunes or by simply becoming a patron via interviewthefuture.com. You see, guys, there are two people who have influenced me more than anyone else to switch to a plant-based diet. The first person was Professor Peter Singer, who put the idea in my head probably 22 years ago when I was first starting to read Introduction to Philosophy as a young undergraduate student. And of course, the second person is Dr. Michael Greger, whose books How Not to Die and the more recent one, the How Not to Die Cookbook, are an absolute must-read for anyone interested in healthy living and even healthy life extension, which, by the way, would be the topic of our conversation today. So the reason why I invited Dr. Greger today is so that we can talk not specifically on how not to die, but how not to age. And so, Dr. Greger, welcome to Singularity FM.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here. I'm excited about this topic.
Fantastic. Well, tell me about it. Why are you excited about this topic? I know that you have it on the back burner to write a book on the topic eventually.
Starting March 2021 will be my How Not to Age book, and so it'll be out December 22.
Fantastic. So, why are you so excited about this topic?
It was really based around a paper published in, I think it was 2014. Basically, the big pharma brought together all the top longevity researchers in the world to some, fancy locale and got them to sit down for a couple of days for a consensus meeting to come up with the most promising longevity pathways in terms of developing anti-aging drug technology. And so they brought Victor Longo, everybody, who's anyone in this field. It's actually not a big field, surprisingly. And they all got together and they came up with a list of five. These are the pathways that, are kind of our best bet for radical life extension. And, I was reading this paper. I was just fascinated by the topic in general to do videos about it for nutritionfacts.org. And I realized every single one of those pathways could be manipulated through diet, right? So they're talking about the TOR pathway, talking about IGF-1, right? Talking about methionine restriction. All these things can be completely, you don't need to develop new drugs to do this. And so I was like, but that's a perfect book. Like literally the book would be based on that paper and I'd have one chapter or one section of chapters on each one of those five and talk about all the diet and lifestyle ways to manipulate that exact same pathway, but do it in ways that are safe, simple, and side effect free.
That's fantastic because my community of sort of singularitarian, transhumanists, life extensionists, and cryonists are all very interested in these topics. So are you in a position to discuss those five possible pathways or do you need to actually write the book first?
Well, I don't have to write the book, but I do have to do the research. So I do have videos on all those topics on my website already, but they're certainly not fleshed out in the way that I would like to. I'm certainly happy to touch.
List those five pathways and tell us.
Oh, I should have pulled up that, knowing that we were having this interview today. I should have pulled up that paper. Let me see if I can find it really quick. Let me look at my longevity folder here.
That's a very important folder.
Of course, I'm sure you're familiar with Kurzweil's book. It's possible that with advances in biotech, radical life extension is just a few decades away. So it may be a matter of just living long enough to live forever. And so either way, eating healthy, right, is our best bet to live a long, healthy life. So How Not to Die, the book that's already out, All proceeds I receive go to charity. I'm not plugging the book for personal gain, but I want people to be healthier, live longer. So, I mean, just staving off chronic disease until we have the technology to, add a year every year, and then we're all set. But let me find that paper.
But speaking in the meantime about staving off, unhealthy disease for possible and having as long as possible healthy lifespan. Yesterday or a couple of days ago, I saw one of those longevity researchers on LinkedIn posted a picture of a dinner with a bunch of his colleagues, and they were all having sort of like something between meat tartare and maybe meat fondue. And then my comment underneath was like, well, we have, undoubtable like medical scientific evidence that shows that meat eating decreases healthy lifespan. So
Right.
that's the first step where we should begin making.
That's funny.
And his response was something to the effect of, we need fundamental changes, not some marginal improvement.
Well, in the meanwhile, right? Oh, look, if we have the answer already, well, then, hand it over. If you don't, you got to live long enough and healthy enough until that happens. I mean, unless we're sure it's going to be in the next few months and we can cram all the crap in our mouths we want, right? I mean, it's like a longevity researcher not wearing a seatbelt. It's like, what? Right? I mean, that's just crazy. Anyway, so I have my longevity folder open. It's got 851 papers, and this is before the book. This is just what I've collected just to do videos about. And so it's going to be hopeless to find this one particular paper.
Let me roll back the tape a little bit and sort of see if I can run you through sort of my plan of our conversation. And then, of course, we're going to chase and have the free form of, as any good conversation has, which I'm enjoying tremendously already. And by the way, I agree completely. My response was going to be, so why don't we just start smoking then? And
What?
With trans fats in the meantime and ignore every single common sense idea or scientific evidence for healthy lifestyle.
Unbelievable. Yeah, no, that's a perfect answer.
Yeah. So tell me about a little bit. Let's roll the tape back and ask you this. For those of our viewers and listeners who perhaps may not know who Dr. Michael Greger is, who is Michael Greger?
I'm a lifestyle medicine physician who started a website, nutritionfacts.org, to offer free daily videos on the latest in evidence-based nutrition. Everything on the website is free, no ads, no corporate sponsorship, strictly non-commercial, not selling anything, just put it up as a public service, as a labor of love. But there's about 1,500 videos on there now covering every aspect of healthy living. New videos and articles uploaded every day. We exist just basically kind of on a Wikipedia model where everything's free, but if people appreciate all the work our research team does, then if we reach so many millions of people that have 1,000 kicks in a few bucks, we're totally fine and set. And excited to share this knowledge on basically the good news.
So if I were to ask you to finish your sentence.
I was just going to say, I mean, the bottom line is that we have tremendous power over our health, destiny, and longevity. The vast majority of premature death and disability is already preventable with a plant-based diet and other healthy lifestyle behaviors.
Fantastic. And I'm a complete believer in that. But let me ask you about one other interesting sort of feature of your biography, because I know that there are a lot of math geeks in my audience, a lot of them. And I know you used to be a math geek yourself.
How did you know that?
Well, I do my homework.
All right. Well, good job, because I don't think that's ever come up. But yes, indeed.
I do my homework. So how did you fall in love with medicine and nutrition or math? And which one was the first love?
Oh, my God. Ideally, all three should pretty much be the same thing. I've always loved the sciences. In undergrad, I tried to get away with taking as few humanities and social sciences courses as possible to complete a biophysics major. It's funny. I loved math. I was good at math. I played with math. I would, my recreation would be, math puzzles.
I
And
think you were obsessed with math at some point.
yes, I was obsessed with math. Fine. Well, yeah, no, the 4-4s game.
No.
Where you try to create integers with 4-4s and common mathematical symbols. So 16 is 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. And so how many numbers can you make with 4-4s and common mathematical symbol? And so I got up to like 19,000, something like that.
Wow.
So anyway, but then, and so I was doing great, taking all the kind of advanced placement courses and so I got cocky when I got to Cornell and took this graduate level class in linear algebra, of all things, which sounds like the most basic of things. And I got there, and it was the first math class I was ever in where there were no numbers. They didn't use any numbers. And I was overwhelmed very quickly. I realized that before I was a big fish in a little pond. And now I realize, I just don't quite have the aptitude. It's like chess. I'm a good chess player unless you're a good chess player. And then I'm like, well, I'm not that good. And indeed, I realized that my math prodigy days were limited, and that maybe jumping over to some of the other hard sciences. But I love math.
Why medicine then?
Oh, well, medicine is to use, you can be an engineer, you can do all sorts of things in sciences, but I wanted to use my skills to help people. And it all goes back to the story of my grandmother, who I got interested in this. I think the spark for many kids who want to become a doctor when they grow up is, watching a grandparent get sick or even die. But for me, is watching my grandma get better. She was diagnosed with end-stage heart disease. Already had so many bypass surgeries, basically run out of plumbing at some point, confined to a wheelchair, crushing chest pain. Her life was over at age 65. But then I heard about this guy, Nathan Pritikin, one of our, pioneer lifestyle medicine practitioners, who, and she's actually featured in Pritikin's biography. He talks about Frances Greger, my grandmother, one of his early success stories. They wheeled her in. She walked out. In fact, within a few weeks, was walking 10 miles a day. And though she was given her medical death sentence at age 65, thanks to a healthy diet, was able to enjoy another 31 years on this planet until age 96 to continue to enjoy her 6 grandkids, including me. So that's why I went into medicine. That's why I practiced the type of medicine I practiced, lifestyle medicine, why I started nutritionfacts.org, why I wrote the book, How Not to Die. I just wanted to do for everyone's family what Pritikin did for my family.
Well, that's a fantastically moving story. And then you came up with this kind of foreign, alien, never heard of previously before concept called evidence-based medicine.
Oh, what a concept. Right? Even better, evidence-based nutrition. I mean, that's even more, right? It's, the fact, I think just the title evidence-based medicine is so ironic because what other field of science do you have to put evidence-based? It's kind of assumed that you're practicing evidence-based engineering, evidence-based chemistry, right? But medicine for so long has been so devoid of rigorous scientific backing of so much of the practices that they really had to have a whole new revolution of evidence. What you actually want to demand evidence for the things that we're exposing people to every day at the risk of their health and lives in some case. So so I'm just taking that a step further and dipping into nutrition, which seems to even be worse than the field of medicine in terms of the corrupting commercial influences and just so much money to be made, actually in both fields, that it's just hard to get a kind of an unbiased, objective. Just tell me what the science says, not from someone who's trying to sell me a product, but just like, what's the best available balance of evidence right now? And so that's what I've kind of dedicated my life to.
So let me follow this exact thread here. What does the evidence say? Is there such a thing as optimal diet for human beings, and why?
Okay, yes. We have decades of a really scientific consensus on the core tenements of healthy living. I mean, there's this kind of manufactured controversy where, it's kind of a standard tobacco industry tactic where you just try to instill doubt into the populace. I mean, you don't have to convince people smoking is good for you, but if you pay off enough of your own scientists to say, well, lung cancer, maybe it doesn't cause lung cancer, then the person who's smoking, will just kind of throw up their hands and do whatever they've been doing before. And the same thing with the food industry. Coffee's good one day, not the other day. Butter is back, butter's not. I mean, that's exactly what the food industry wants. So you throw up your hands, eat whatever crap's put in front of your face, just to keep people as confused as possible. But that's not what the peer-reviewed medical literature says. Anyone who wants to crack it open, and now anyone has unprecedented access to the riches, the wealth of knowledge that's out there, this mountain of evidence, sees no, there's this just remarkably consistent thread. In fact, the True Health Initiative is an organization, a nonprofit created by David Katz, the head of Yale's Prevention Center, where he brought together about 500 of the top scientists in the world. You know how, like, if you wonder about climate change, right? So they have this consensus statement of climate, climatologists say, okay, 90 whatever percent say yes, anthropogenic, climate change. Well, the same thing you want to do with nutrition. Okay, what does the science say? Let's get the top nutrition professionals in the world. So Walt Willett from Harvard, everybody together to agree on a consensus statement, and they did that. And it's, center your diet predominantly around whole plant foods. I mean, that's kind of the bottom line. There's lots of tweaks you can go from there. But you say, okay, well, how do we know that? Is it just this kind of observational data where some populations who eat a certain way live longer or healthier than others? And how do we know it's their diet and they're just not, people who eat healthy are probably exercising, not smoking, putting in smoke alarms, how do we know it's the diet? The reason we know it's the diet because we have interventional trials. You take people, you randomize the two groups, half continue their regular diet, the other half, you put on some, trial diet and you test to see what happens. And that's finally what Dr. Dean Ornish did, July 21st, 1990, published in the most prestigious medical journal in the world, The Lancet, the Lifestyle Heart Trial, proven for the first time that the number one killer of men and women, heart disease, could be reversed with a plant-based diet and lifestyle program. Never been shown before. Randomized controlled trial, opening up arteries without drugs, without surgery.
Side effects.
Good side effects, right? Right. And so, since that day, 1990, no one else should have died of heart disease. We had the cure. We've had it for decades now, yet hundreds of thousands. People continue to die from this preventable, arrestable, reversible condition.
So, in fact, based on what you're saying there, and I've been reading some recent studies that suggest that actually life expectancy for the U.S. population and for the population of the United Kingdom, for example, in the last 3 or 4 years has been diminishing rather than increasing based on all those lifestyle choices, nutritional choices that we make daily in our lives.
Yeah, and so I would encourage people to go to healthdata.org, where you can find your country. So it's healthdata.org/Sweden or /Canada or / wherever you are. And so then you will get this beautifully presented graphical data from the Global Burden of Disease Study. This is the largest study of human risk factors for disease in human history, funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, found that, for example, in the United States, the number one cause of death is the American diet. And number one cause of disability, number of healthy years lost, diet. Now bumping tobacco to number two. Cigarettes now only kill about 500,000 Americans every year, whereas our diet kills hundreds of thousands more. Number one cause of death and disability. And so if you're interested in a long, healthy life, the most important thing is at the end of your fork.
Dr. Greger, we're kind of very quickly making ahead here with the time, so I'm trying to push forward because I have so many questions and I've been looking forward to this conversation with you for so many years. So let me ask you this. What do you say to people who I meet everywhere all the time? And I tell them, look, I've been vegan for 2 years and 2 months now, and it's the best thing I ever done for myself. And people tell me, well, I tried that for 2 weeks or I tried that for 4 weeks and it doesn't work for me. What do you tell those people?
Well, what do they say? How is it not working for them?
Well, they say they get so protein deficient, or they say someone told them they should go back to meat because it doesn't work for them. So we have this friend, and her mom is like 70 pounds or weight probably. And she's like, and I was like suggesting her try plant-based diet. And she's like, well, she tried that for 3 or 4 weeks and her doctor told her it doesn't work for her and she should go back to eating meat and all that stuff, for example.
Well, I mean, it's like going to a doctor who smokes, who says that smoking is fine, right? No, seriously. I mean, no, the reason, back in the 1950s, for example, for the Surgeon General's report here in the States, most doctors smoke cigarettes. I mean, so it's like.
Let me tell you an amazing story.
Yeah.
My wife's family is from Rochester, New York.
Oh, yeah.
When her grandma had her mom, in the 1950s, she gained a lot of weight and she went to the doctor and the doctor prescribed her cigarettes so that she lose weight. I swear she got a prescription to start smoking so that she can lose weight and return to her previous.
No, there were ads in the Journal of the American Medical Association encouraging doctors to prescribe Philip Morris for their patients. In fact, the American Medical Association actually formally came out opposed to endorsing the Surgeon General's report. Could it have been because they were just handed a $10 million check from the tobacco industry? Maybe. But I mean, you can just see, just like, you think about the smoking habits of physicians back then, think about the eating habits of physicians today. I mean, most doctors today continue to eat the foods that are contributing to our epidemics of dietary disease. And so if they're not informed, what are they going to, they just aren't able to tell their patients. I mean, we aren't taught sufficient nutrition in medical school. So if you don't learn it, then, we're giving our patients bad advice.
Let me ask you another opposition or another counter argument
Please.
that I get often. People tell me, look, I'm very active. I exercise a lot. So maybe I eat, fatty meat and bacon and eggs for breakfast, but I burn it all in the gym. And they're visibly not overweight.
Right. Oh, yeah. I mean, the goal is not to fit into a skinnier coffin. Right? You can lose all the weight you want, right? You want to lose weight? Tuberculosis, AIDS, chemotherapy, cholera, a good cocaine habit, right? There's lots of ways to lose weight. The question is, what is it doing to your body? And by eating bacon and eggs every day, you're ravaging your endothelium, the inner lining of your arteries, setting yourself up for heart disease, strokes. These are some of the leading killers. And so, depends on what your goals are, but it's possible to actually be healthy and slim and live long all at the same time with the right diet.
So is nutrition then more important than exercise?
Oh my God, absolutely. So again, you go to the global burden of disease study, exercise usually down around 6, depending on the country in terms of inactivity. But you can think of all the money that's put into campaigns to stop smoking, and you realize in almost every single one of these countries, smoking kills and maims fewer people than the diet in that country does, and then usually physical inactivity is lower down the list. But as you can see, me being on my treadmill right now, physical activity is important. And I recommend 90 minutes of moderate exercise every day, 7 days a week, or 45 minutes of vigorous exercise. And why? And that's actually based on longevity data. And so, just like in nutrition, where they kind of soft pedal the message, and say, well, we can't tell people the truth because we want to make it kind of doable. We don't want to intimidate people. We want to make kind of achievable goals. So, the current recommendations are like 30 minutes exercise, like most days a week, something like that, 20 minutes. But if you look at the data, for example, the walking data, which is probably the largest, yes, it's true. I mean, people that walk 15 minutes a day live longer than people that don't walk any. So even a little bit, every little bit helps. Okay, but people that walk for 30 minutes a day on average live longer than on average than those walking 15. Same thing with 45 over 30 and 60 over 45. And it maxes out at 90 minutes. So people that walk for 90 minutes a day on average live longer than people who walk for 60 minutes a day. And is it possible people walking even longer do even better? We don't know, because they couldn't find a large enough cohort of people that actually walk more than 90 minutes a day. And so it's possible it gets even better. We don't know. But currently, the best available balance of evidence suggests 90 is best. And so that should be the recommendation. Doesn't mean everybody has to do it, but you should at least know the science says, more is better. But every little bit helps, and the more you can do. And the same thing with diet, right? It's not all or nothing, not black or white. Anything we can do to move towards eating healthier. It doesn't matter what you do on your birthday or holidays, special occasions. It's the day-to-day stuff that really builds up. Our body has a remarkable capacity to bounce back from sporadic insults, but you can't be, poking yourself with a fork 3 times a day.
Dr. Greger, we're in the last 5 minutes of our interview here, because I know you're very busy and you're lining up many of them. Let me just ask you a few quick questions here in the end. Is there a single most healthiest food or most life longevity promoting food?
Yeah. So there's actually only 2 foods that have ever been proven to proven is a strong word. There's only 2 foods that have, after controlling for other lifestyle factors, been associated with significant longer life in terms of years added to your life. Only 2 foods can do that. So far, I mean, there may very well be other foods that just haven't been tested. Number 1 is nuts. We learned that from the Adventist studies. You compare people very similar, right? These are a bunch of Adventists. They don't smoke. They eat lots of fruits and vegetables, very healthy people. And so you compare, and vegetarians, and you compare those same lifestyle characteristics, nuts versus no nuts, both vegetarian, both don't smoke, blah, 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 blah. On down the list, both, not obese. And the nut eaters live 2 years longer. And that's 5 times a week, a handful, like an ounce of nuts, 5 times a week. So I just tell people an ounce every day. But so that's one. And then we have Japanese data on darkening leafy vegetables. So Japanese men and women who eat greens every day live significantly longer. And they also have great longevity walking data as well.
What about calorie restriction? I have some people, listeners of my podcast, who practice calorie restriction.
Yeah, so I have a section in my upcoming book, How Not to Diet, on weight control, which is coming up next before How Not to Age. I talk a lot about calorie restriction, so I've reviewed the literature, but mostly in terms of weight loss, but certainly going to do the same thing for the longevity book. So, if you go to nutritionfacts.org, type in calorie restriction, it pulls up a few videos I did about suggesting that the benefits of calorie restriction may be due to protein restriction. And so you can get, and indeed, it's not even general protein restriction, but specifically methionine restriction. So you may be able to get all the benefits of calorie restriction just by restricting this one amino acid. And you can do that by, shifting towards more plant-based sources of protein. And so then you don't have to, walk around kind of starving all the time. But there are certainly other benefits to caloric restriction. The calorie trial is really the best data to date. But like dozens of publications from this single trial, but it shows really remarkable benefits. We were concerned from some of the biosphere studies before in terms of vigor and libido and sleep, etc. But the calorie trial which tried to restrict people. I think 30% only got like down 12% or so. But really saw remarkable improvements kind of across the board. So there may be other benefits. But in terms of longevity, it may be methionine restriction may be where it's at. A lot of that is based on laboratory animal data, which you always have to be a little concerned about in terms of extrapolating. That's something I'll give really deep treatment to in the book, but certainly my current analysis is at on nutritionfacts.org.
Fantastic. Unfortunately, we're pretty much out of time, so I only want to ask you the last two questions. First,
okay.
Where can people find more about you and your work?
So nutritionfacts.org, all my work is free. You can check it out there. You can sign up. You can subscribe and get alerted when all the new videos are up. Oh, there's a free app on iPhone and Android called Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, where there's a checklist of all the dozen things I encourage people to fit into their daily routine. So berries every day, the healthiest foods; greens every day, the healthiest vegetables. Kind of go down the list: a tablespoon of ground flax seeds, quarter teaspoon of turmeric. And so it's just like a little check, but every day you check off the boxes and you graph your progress. Kind of fun, just to remind you to get some of the healthiest of healthy foods into your daily diet. So you can check that out as well.
I have a lot of people who are from the quantified self community, so that would be perfect.
They'd love it. They'd love it.
I think so. Last question. What's the most important thing that you want us to take away from this conversation today, keeping in mind that my audience is not interested only in healthy living, but most of all in long living? We want to live forever.
Right. No, so long living. So, I talk about, in fact, I start out the book in the introduction, How Not to Die. I talk about how no one dies of old age. So they looked at autopsies of centenarians who apparently died of old age. They had no, diagnosed conditions. Their doctor said, no, they were fine, and they just dropped dead. If you actually do autopsies, in every single case, they died from from medical cause. Most, number one of which was heart disease. So they didn't know they had heart disease. They weren't diagnosed with heart disease, but no, indeed, they died of a heart attack. And so number one killer of men and women, heart disease. And if that's all a plant-based diet could do, reverse the number one killer of men and women, shouldn't that kind of be the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that it can also be so effective in preventing, arresting, reversing other leading killers like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure would seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming.
Dr. Greger, thank you very much for spending so much time with us. And one last parting request on my behalf. When the new book, How Not to Age, comes out, can I please have you for at least an hour, please?
How about I'll send you a pre-release review copy.
That would be fantastic, but only if it comes with the interview, because
I'll get back to you.
All right. Sorry, I couldn't haggle you. All the best. Thank you so much. If you guys enjoy this show, you can help me make it better in a couple of ways. You can go and write a review on iTunes, or you can simply make a donation.